Welcome to another episode of Executive Edge. I'm Nora Paxson, CEO, coach, leadership strategist, and advisor to founder and senior executive. I help leaders think bigger, lead more intentionally, and create lasting organizational impact. Today, I'm joined by Jaebadiah Gardner, founder and CEO of GardnerGlobal, an organization focused on creating access, opportunity, and real pathways for people to thrive. Jaebadiah also is the author of Believe in Yourself, which speaks directly to conviction, resilience, and leadership from the inside out. Jaebadiah, thank you for being there.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd love to start with what sits underneath all of this for you. So you've built your work around expanding access and opportunity. What made this mission personal for you?
That's a great question. Um, what made it personal for me? Honestly, creating space and the disenfranchisement of the opportunity to build wealth through real estate is really, we want to say, the underpinning of why we do this work.
Yeah. And was there a defining moment where this became like something you knew you had to pursue?
There were several moments. There were several defining moments, I would say. But, one that comes to mind is when I was working at Turner Construction as a project engineer. It was my first job out of college. I was working for a builder. I was a builder, and we were building commercial buildings downtown Seattle, and I had no experience in that prior. And as we were doing so, we would have several conversations about the ownership group and who the ownership was, and who was our client. And at the time, it was Wright Runstead, and Wright Runstead is a legacy real estate development company here in Seattle, Washington. And I had no idea who they were, but I did know that our project budget was $150 million.
Uh-huh.
And as a 23, 24-year-old, it just blew my mind, like $150 million to build a building. Who has that kind of money? Like,
Yeah.
I can't even fathom that at that age. And so I just really took that information and did some serious research on who developers were, what they did, how they maintained it, like everything. And I just got obsessed with the idea of building wealth through real estate. And secondarily, why isn't there people who look like me in this space?
Mm, yeah. That's really powerful. And then what stands out to me is that it wasn't just an idea. It was something that shaped by real experience. And so I'd like to build on that a bit, if you like. So as you've grown as a leader, how would you describe your leadership style today?
That's an interesting question. I don't, I don't know if I have like a direct answer to my leadership style. I guess if you kind of had to categorize it, um, you know, I, I like to lead by example,
Mhm.
and not much of a micromanager. I think a lot of my, if we want to call it leadership style, I think for me, it's creating space for others to find their own leadership style and their own ways to lead and their own ways to create. And so if I can create opportunities or pockets of opportunities where other people can find that moment, their defining moment as well for them, then for me, that's a win. And whether they stay with my company or grow and do something great, it doesn't matter. As long as they're doing something amazing in the world, it's a win. So I
Yeah.
don't know how you would define that, but um,
Yeah, empower, enabler, servant leaders.
there you go. There you go.
And it's not something that is easy, right? To especially when you become a leader. So what's something that you had to unlearn along the way to become that leader that you described?
Everything, every single thing. Had to learn everything.
Yeah.
And still learning, right?
Yeah.
No, I think entrepreneurship isn't for the faint of heart, right? This is not an easy path to choose. And so I really had to learn to be comfortable with the unknown. And in general, for most people, that is a very difficult thing to do, right? And when you're in business for yourself, there is a plethora of
Yeah.
things you just don't know. And if you can get comfortable in that space and thrive in that space, I think that would only benefit you as a leader going forward. And that's still something I'm still learning. I'm still in uncomfortable positions right now, right? And so I'm learning to continue to kind of talk to myself and say, okay, this is what we asked for. Now, how do we problem solve? And then the next issue that comes up, we're not as uncomfortable because we've dealt with it,
Yes,
right? And so
exactly.
and so that's kind of, I would say, something that I had to unlearn was to be comfortable in times of hardship and
Yeah.
unknown.
Oh, that's great. And discomfort is growth, right? That's where we experience growth is when we become uncomfortable. And so that shift is something that a lot of leaders struggle with. And especially when they move from doing the work, especially, when you start, you got to do the work, right? To leading at scale. And so, which bring me to the next question around execution. So a lot of organizations talk about impact. How do you make sure that Gardner Global actually delivers measurable outcome, not just good intentions?
Yeah, another great question. Um, I would say, for the work that we do, through mentorship,
Hmm.
and, so measuring success through mentorship and watching the success of younger leaders going on to do great things. I think, I think that is, an absolute sign of someone's leadership style and their competency and expertise. If they have folks who are coming underneath them, then all of a sudden scale up themselves and are successful in their own spaces. I mean, that to me is almost immeasurable, right?
Yeah.
Because they're then creating new businesses that are then hiring people and then they're now a part of the economy in a real tangible way.
Mm,
And then at a project level, just executing on our housing projects, and creating the affordability piece, and delivering competitive investor returns and being able to do it again. I mean, those are
yeah.
real tangible things. In my business of real estate, it becomes real when this building behind me is up 8 stories, right? And there's
Yes.
people who are having birthday parties there and
Mm,
celebrating anniversaries. Like that to me is a measure. And so being able to hit all those targets of making sure investor returns get back, making sure affordability targets get hit, and making sure that the community in general is making use of this building, to me, that would be a sign of success.
yeah. And so where do you see leaders getting wrong when they try to scale mission-driven work?
As a entrepreneur and business owner, I
Mhm.
mean, I made every mistake in the book. So I'm kind of like, where do we start? Where do we
Yeah.
start? I think with every individual, people do things their own way, which is amazing, right? It's what makes this game of business ownership and entrepreneurship fun. But I don't know, I guess if I had to kind of pick one, um, I would say that, you know, CEOs and leaders, it's important to identify and build the right team and find,
Hmm.
which is AKA finding the right people. And that is, I want to say, the people part of business is one of the hardest things you can do because you can have the best product on earth, you can have the best service on earth, but if you don't have the right team to deliver it, it's game over.
Yeah. It's
It's
game
game
over.
over.
Exactly. Yeah.
And sometimes I think, and I was, I definitely fell into this trap where, I wasn't picking the right people. I was picking people for not the right reasons, right?
Mm.
And so I had to get out of that box and get real business minded and select the people on my team that I knew could help us scale and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. You can. I love we can have great product, but if we don't have the right people, it doesn't matter. It's all about execution, right? So if we are not actually, as a matter of people are willing to invest in you if they know that you have the ability to execute. So perfectly said. And so that tension between intention and reality is really where leadership gets tested. So I'm going to ask you a few questions in that area.
Mhm.
Tell me about a time you had to make a tough decision where the right answer was not that obvious.
You know, um, it makes me think about when I first decided to purchase the Mount Calvary Christian Center, which is a longstanding African American
Mm.
church in the Central District in Seattle, Washington, which is the site of this future building. Um, I had a relationship with the seller, which was the bishop, and I had an opportunity. He granted me an opportunity to purchase this 3.75 million dollar piece of real estate from him. I
Mhm.
had no answers. I had no answers. I had no idea how I was going to raise 3.7 million. I just knew I had the opportunity to do it. And so do I A, say no, I'm not going to take this opportunity to buy a multi-million dollar piece of real estate in the city of Seattle because I don't have it? Or
Mhm.
B, do I take the opportunity and figure it out later? And that's what I did is I figured it out later. And it took about 12 months, but we raised the money to cash them out and purchase the site. And so and that was just step one, right? I still have to
Mhm.
develop this building. I have to build it. And so there was a number of things that are just in the unknown, what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But we thrive in the unknown and we hire the right people, you problem solve. And when you problem solve, you find the right answer eventually. It might not happen
Yeah.
on the time that you want it to, but
Yeah.
eventually you'll get there.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And so, how do you personally balance staying true to your values while also making the business work?
That's an easy one because it's in our mission. Our mission is to build wealth and let's build wealth is something I always hashtag, right? Let's meaning like let's do it together. Let's combine forces and build wealth together. And for me at that as a guiding compass, it's not I can't forget why I'm doing this work, right?
No.
It's right in front of me. And so for me, I embedded the mission and the core value of creating housing for people who need it and creating jobs for people who need it and building wealth for people who are looking to do that. It's all embedded in my mission, so I don't need to do anything extra. I don't it's not an afterthought. It's
Yeah.
like it's
Yes.
in line with what we're doing. So for me to stay true, that's one way. And then also surrounding myself with family and friends who keep me honest and keep me true, right?
Mm.
I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I mess up all the time. And business is business. And sometimes you got to make a business decision, not an emotional community decision. But sometimes you need friends and family to say, hey, like, yeah, business might be business, but that's not in line with your values. And so having people around me to constantly remind me of why I'm in this game is also super imperative.
Yeah. Wow. I love the clarity and discipline. And, that type of level doesn't just show up in big decision. It also show up intentionally. So I would like to connect this to your book, right? So in your book, Believing in Yourself, you talk about conviction and self-belief. What does that actually look like in moment when things aren't working?
Oh, it looks messy. It looks
Mm.
messy. It's terrible. It looks like the inside of a 3-year-old's crib, like
Yes.
everything's everywhere. Um, it's hard. It is hard. It is very difficult. But in those moments, I really try to be introspective. And I really try to create that opportunity to tap in with myself. You know,
Mm.
meaning I have my own practices where I tap in with myself to make sure that my mental health is on track, make sure that my vision is clear still. And that takes the form of talking to myself most days and telling myself my own mantra and taking walks and going to boxing 4 days a week and fencing and doing things that are not work. And then that creates some daylight and some opening to where when times are difficult and hard, I'm able to kind of sit within myself and tap in because we got to do that more, right? Like when people
Yeah.
say, "Oh man, that person's talking to themselves, they're crazy." That's me sitting there talking to myself, telling myself, reaffirming myself that like this,
Mm.
I'm doing a great job and I need to keep doing it. Because who else is going to do it when times are
Yes.
hard? That's the whole point.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So
Yes.
somebody's got to tell yourself you're doing a good job when you're feeling terrible. And so I just try to make sure I remind myself of those moments. And it's hard, but it's doable.
Yeah, I love that you're using mindset tools. I love that you're using self-care. And it really that's a powerful reminder that leadership is not just external, it's deeply internal. And with that in mind, let's look ahead. As you look forward, what kind of leader do we need more in the next 5 to 10 years?
We need competent leaders. Just very basic. We need people who just know their craft and know what they're
Mhm.
doing. Like I mean, I don't want to overcomplicate it. It's just there's sometimes we see people in leadership positions that should not be there because they're
Mm.
not competent. And then they don't want to even try to be competent. So, for the next 5 or 10 years, I really would love to see a push behind supporting people who love what they're doing, whether it's business, art, community, whatever space that they're a leader in. If like like invest in that competency, because the more people that we have in leadership positions that know their craft and are competent in what they're doing, the better off we're all going to be.
Yeah, I love invest in your competency. Absolutely. And so, what are you personally building towards right now that excite you the most?
Oh man, I'm just excited about all the real estate development projects that we have going, because within real estate development, I'm able to touch so much,
Yeah.
right? And so this building that we're building behind us is a legacy building that I'm naming after my grandmother. And, there's a legacy piece, but it's in a workforce affordable housing building. So we're able to do that. And there's an opportunity to hire contractors who probably don't get the opportunity to work on these projects. So there's so many layers,
Mm,
so much substance to development that I get excited about, because they're opportunities. Us as developers, we're actually opportunity creators, right? And so
yes.
if you're intentional about real estate development, you can create opportunities for some incredible people who've never seen it before, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm excited to build this building. It's an 8-story building, 117 units. It's a $50 million total investment. And, we're looking for partners and capital to help us make it go vertical. So I'm excited to talk. I'm just excited to talk to investors. I'm excited to talk to banks, the whole nine, because finding the right partner, is going to be super, super meaningful.
Yes. And I heard about it. Your grandma Sarah, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes. I saw an excerpt of your video
Oh,
about
nice.
yes, I think it's on Amazon or something like this. I can't remember. But yeah, it's I'm excited to see where it's going. Absolutely amazing story. Um,
Thank-
so I'd like to close with this, Jebediah. If someone is listening to this conversation today and wants to grow as a leader starting tomorrow, what's one thing you would challenge them to do?
One thing. I only get one thing, huh? Okay.
Oh, maybe two if you
Okay.
want.
I'm gonna I'm gonna bundle a few things into one
Okay,
thing.
let's do
Uh,
it.
I think I think what I would say is that they should take more risk. You should
Mm,
take more risk, and you should continue to experiment and try new things. And sometimes, AKA, that means reinventing yourself. Like there's no
mm,
reason for you to dress the same, look the same, do the same, but like there's no reason when you can try a million different things and see what works. So I would challenge folks to push themselves, experiment more, have fun in that experimentation, and take more risks, because at the end of the day, the risk is you'll learn something new to better your craft. And
yes.
and so why not do that, right? Short-term pain for long-term gain. Sacrifice our todays for our tomorrows. That's where I'm at. So that would be my little last little piece that I would say.
I, I love it. I love it. So, before we wrap up, what's the best way to reach out to you or to connect with you?
Yeah, you can reach me, reach out on Jebediah.com, or I'm pretty busy on Instagram. That's where I
Okay.
kind of share a lot of information. I'm on all platforms. So Jebediah.com, you can find me at Jebediah on Instagram. You could find me on YouTube. Those are probably the biggest platforms that I would say. So don't hesitate to reach out, shoot me a message. I love to connect with people who are doing good things.
Yes. Well, Jebediah, thank you. This was a really meaningful conversation. And I really, truly appreciate you sharing both the vision and the reality behind your work. And to everyone listening, thank you for being part of the conversation.
Well, thank you for having me, Nora. All the best.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Jebediah.
All right, take care.